We are back with another house overview for you today. We're focusing on a house called KARINE ROITFELD. Are you familiar with this house? I discovered this house last year, but I had heard about it several years ago. Finally, we have the fragrances in our hands. We've got eight fragrances, 7 lovers, 1 non-7 lover, and we're missing one. But we're going to talk to you about KARINE ROITFELD'S fragrances. These are what the bottles look like. If you want to find out about them, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian and Joe's here.
Hello.
What do you think about this house?
I think they have some great scents in this house. I also enjoy the fact that KARINE ROITFELD, being somebody who was ex-Vogue, kind of branched off and started making her own perfume house. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that famous meme. Have you seen it with Jeremy and
You're
Tom Ford?
Yeah.
Jeremy Fragrance. I believe that was her in that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's created several fragrances here. It's a total of 9, but we only have 8 of the fragrances. We don't have the latest. And we have our favorites, and we're going to start off with the 7 Lovers collection in alphabetical order. Then we'll touch on KARINE, which is this. But also the fragrances are sold at So Avant-Garde. I have them linked in the info box. There's a 20% off discount code for the fragrances there. Any fragrances on the website, but minus the Mind Games fragrances, you can use the 20% off discount code. So we shall start with Aurelien. For the first one. So Aurelien is created by Aurelien Guichard. That's funny that he created a fragrance named after his name.
Yeah.
So these are 7 lovers. Are they the 7 lovers of KARINE ROITFELD?
That's a possibility. We'd have to ask her. KARINE, is this true?
If you're watching, please let us know. So Aurelien features notes of orange blossom, myrrh, benzoin, black amber, accord, jasmine, patchouli, and opoponax. For me, this is an amber floral fragrance, and it might hint at something like Love Don't Be Shy, but very distantly hinting at it. Is a combination of orange blossom and the ambery sweet notes. Very resinous for me.
I get resinous, and I also, with this one, I get a nice kind of yin and yang effect. I've mentioned that before on this channel, how some fragrances can be contrasting in a good way. And this one, I see kind of like a pretty white floral with the jasmine and orange blossom kind of being contrasted by the black amber accord and the patchouli and the opoponax, and kind of bringing it down to a darker area.
You've got a bright start and the darker end, and it's the contrast of fresh notes and warmer notes.
Yeah. I think it's a great fragrance. It's not linear in my opinion, and it's definitely got a lot of depth. I think it's an interesting fragrance for sure.
Yeah, and the benzoin and the opoponax are providing that sweet amber resinous touches, and then you've got a black amber accord in here, and then the earthy woodiness of the patchouli. It's a nicely made fragrance for sure.
Yeah, it is, and it's fairly safe. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. If you're familiar with Aurelien Guichard's fragrances, his brand is Matière Première. You kind of have an idea of his style of fragrance making. He's also created the Burberry Hero fragrances, and he's done a lot of fragrances for Robert Piguet. But if you're familiar with his creations, this one will probably satisfy you. For me, I think this kind of takes me into a Robert Piguet fragrances direction for some strange reason, because I know he created a lot of fragrances for Robert Piguet, and it reminds me of something from Robert Piguet. Are you familiar with that house?
I've smelled a few of their fragrances, not anything that I can really speak on too heavily, but I really enjoy this fragrance, and if I like it as much as I do, then I'm sure I would like the Robert Piguet's.
Yeah, one of Robert Piguet's fragrances he created is called Casbah.
Casbah.
It's an incense fragrance.
Okay.
Yeah, I've spoken quite a bit about it, but he's done a lot more.
I might have to hop on that.
Yeah. So it looks like there's like 2 perfumes by each perfumer, maybe something like that. But we've got a fragrance next called George, created by Yann Vasnier. Yann Vasnier's created a lot of Tom Ford fragrances. And this is a green mossy fragrance, a lot of green notes. So featuring notes of Iranian galbanum, iris, oakmoss, earth, cannabis, violet leaves, woods, leather, rose, and jasmine.
I enjoy this one, and it's kind of interesting. It's a bit of a dichotomy because I don't like cannabis and fragrance. I was speaking with Sebastian about that.
We spoke about that yesterday, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And this one's nice because it kind of gives me a bit of a vintage feel. Kind of has like a bit of a classical vibe to it with that
I
oak
could see
moss.
that.
But yeah,
it's very bitter.
I'm also a big fan of Galbanum. Or Galbanum.
Galbanum.
Galbanum. I really enjoy Galbanum in fragrances, and just how, like Sebastian said, it kind of makes that bitter green accord come to life in fragrances, and that is really what you're getting with this one.
Well, what do you think, though? The cannabis has this kind of a camphor edge about it, and then it's bitter, and then the Galbanum is also bitter. Does this make it a very bitter experience?
I think it's fairly bitter, but it's also got violet leaf and iris in it as well. The iris isn't necessarily,
Powdery.
yeah, it's not really a buttery iris. It's definitely more of the powdery side, which contrasts with that bitterness, with the bitter greenness. But I'm a fan of this fragrance. I think George is a really good fragrance.
George is a nice guy.
George is a nice guy for sure.
I should say George is a nice lover, huh? So next we've got KAR-WAI, this one right here, Japanese.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is created by Pascal Gaurin. It's Saffiano leather, musks, smoked lapsang tea, cardamom, Turkish rose, vetiver, osmanthus, bergamot, and jasmine. I felt like this was a cold fragrance, not as warm as some of the other ones. Even though the last fragrance, George, was all green, I felt a warmth about that one. This one doesn't come off very warm to me. I don't know why.
I agree with that. It's definitely a bit more of a chilling experience. Not in a bad way by any means.
No.
But I get a bit of a coziness from the tea. Typically.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, tea is cozy, but everything is cold around it.
Yeah, which is weird because there's no incense. Usually incense for me goes really cold, and all the notes that are in here don't necessarily point me in a cold direction. However, it is a colder experience.
Yeah, we've got fresh spices, fresh floral notes, the bergamot, osmanthus, all providing kind of cooler, fresher notes. Osmanthus is also providing us some leathery touches.
Yeah.
Fruitiness as well. I mean, the whole experience is very fresh to me and colder.
I don't necessarily get...
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's also, in my opinion, it's not really an animalic leatheriness from the Saffiano leather. I think the Saffiano leather is pretty tamed and all, not necessarily fabric-like, but getting in that direction. I'm a fan of this one as well. It's interesting. This house has a lot of really good fragrance, none that are really like pow in my face, but like they're all really good.
Nicely executed.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got my favorites.
Yeah.
We'll tell you about them.
Indeed we will.
So next we have Lawrence, also created by Yann Vasnier. So Lawrence is jasmine, tolu balsam, saffron, musk, oud, cumin, coriander.
This is one of my tops, I think, from the line, actually. Interesting enough. And I know, as we mentioned, every single time we have an oud fragrance on the channel, they're outdone. I like this one, though. I think the cumin and the jasmine together works really nicely. Kind of, it doesn't necessarily bring out an indolic side to the jasmine, but there's like a slight funk that I get from this fragrance.
There is a little funk to me from the jasmine, and this is once again like the first fragrance. Aurelien, there's a contrast here, warmth and also coolness, freshness.
Yeah.
The jasmine providing that freshness, coriander providing that freshness, the cumin even provides that freshness, but you've got the oud and the tolu balsam, maybe perhaps the musk as well. So you've got this nice contrast of fresh and warm notes together.
Yeah.
This isn't one of my all-time favorites from this house. I prefer the previous ones more, but I think I can get used to it. Even though it has cumin and I love cumin,
yeah,
this one's not jumping out at me as much for me, some strange reason.
The jasmine in this fragrance kind of smells reminiscent of the jasmine in the diptyque fragrance Aurelien, I believe is the name of it.
Aurelien.
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
Aurelien,
yeah, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to add a bit of a resinous woodiness to that fragrance, Aurelien, I think it's kind of a similar jasmine to that, with that indolic kind of funky side, which I'm a fan of. I enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad fragrance. This one just doesn't jump out at me like the previous three. I think the house is fairly solid. Mm-hmm. That's why we're doing the video, for you guys to see and find out about the fragrances, because they're just now making their way here to the States. They've been out for several years in Europe, and hopefully you guys will check them out. So far, I think my favorite is Aurelien, and I enjoyed George as well, followed by KAR-WAI. KAR-WAI is a very fresh fragrance. Just Lawrence is not very exciting to me.
I would agree with those top three, going with those, except Lawrence is a little bit higher for me, but
okay,
subjective.
All right, we're speaking about Orson next. Is that referring to Orson Welles? If these are actual lovers of Carine Roitfeld, I don't think Orson is Orson Welles, but so it's Orson, created by Aurélien Guichard once again. So it looks like, I mean, each perfumer has done 2 fragrances. This one's featuring hawthorn flowers, ylang ylang, Opoponax, tuberose, tonka beans, and Laotian benzoin. And so far, out of all of them, Orson is a favorite of mine. I like the warmth and those hawthorn flowers. And we've got that kind of tropical floral note in there as well. But what I like about this is the benzoin and the Opoponax, sweet resins against flowers and, tonka and things like that. Definitely, I enjoy this one. And it also has the signature touch of Aurelien Guichard.
Mm-hmm. And it's also fresh, even though there's all those like white flowers and the sweetness with the tonka bean and the Opoponax and the benzoin. There's a pretty fresh aspect to this fragrance, which is interesting to me.
I think it's provided by the hawthorn flowers.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a nutty almondiness with the hawthorn flowers. Are you getting that?
Yeah, I'm picking up that a bit, but
it's reminding me a little bit of mimosa flower.
Yeah,
not a lot.
I can see that. Yeah, hawthorn flower is not something that you see typically in perfumery, so it's interesting to have a new note that kind of will throw people off a little bit. Hopefully,
what does hawthorn smell like?
Yeah, what does it smell like?
Yeah, I mean, it's curious. I'm always curious to discover new notes. Like recently, I saw cilantro listed in a fragrance.
Really? Oh man, I know a lot.
Not the coriander, because coriander is the same plant and it's the seeds.
Yeah.
But when it matures and becomes an actual herb, it's cilantro.
I know a lot of people who don't like cilantro.
It was it was me too. I hated cilantro for the longest time. It had the weirdest, strangest smell that really repulsed me.
Yeah.
For the longest time. And I love Mexican food, and I would have to avoid cilantro.
Tough. That's tough to do in Mexican cuisine.
I enjoy it now. It doesn't bother me now.
Well, that's good. The next fragrance, this is kind of a cool name.
Cool name, huh? We've got Sebastian next.
Hey, look at that.
This one's also created by Pascal Gaurin. I like this one too. This one features Immortelle with tuberose, sandalwood, and vanilla. And Sebastian also is spicy, sweet, floral. There's white flowers here, of course, the tuberose. But the Immortelle note has that kind of brown sugary caramel maple syrup-like effect in the fragrance. So it's smooth and creamy and white floral.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do get that spicy edge from it. I'm not exactly sure where the spiciness is going to come from. But I like how they've taken the tuberose, and for me, tuberose sometimes goes in a bit of a green direction, kind of like a vegetal direction.
Yeah, it does.
And the Immortelle and the vanilla kind of brings it into its sweeter side, which I'm a fan of. It doesn't necessarily it's not like a sweet floral necessarily, but it's going in that direction for sure.
One other thing about Immortelle, not only does it have those kind of brown sugar caramel nuances, but it can also come off herbal. To me, there's an herbal aspect to it.
That's probably what I'm picking
More like dried up herbs.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, it has a very autumn-like presence.
Yeah.
The actual ingredient, Immortelle, so it has that effect in here.
I could see wearing this in the fall.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally. It's a really cool fragrance, and I think they've done your name justice with it.
Mm-hmm. Yay!
Ooh, yeah.
So next up, it's my favorite of the 7 lovers, I should say. It's Vladimir. Vladimir is also created by Pascal Gaurin. I think he created 3 in the collection. Everybody else created 2. So it's iris, incense, amber, cedar, sage, grapefruit, bergamot, geranium. This one has such a great dry down. Absolutely love it. Really, really great. And I'm become an iris lover. Oh man, it's so good.
This is
so good.
Really good iris fragrance, guys.
Let's see. Vladimir is the lover?
Possibly.
Which Vladimir is it?
Yeah. Drop it in the comments which one you think it is.
No, but this is woody and green and spicy and smoky, powdery. There's amber touches, aromatic, herbal touches. This smells so good on me. It has a great trail as well.
It's an incredible fragrance. And for an iris, I mean, there's a lot of irises out there, but this is iris done in a very, very good way. You can have your powdery and you can have your super buttery, and this is kind of like right in the middle. Yeah, I get like both aspects of the iris plant. It's
dry and creamy at the same time.
It's so good.
Could it be that way?
Yeah, I guess with this one it can.
I guess Vladimir can.
Yeah.
Be dry and creamy.
And like it's also mentioning again how there's like a bit of like an herbal nuance with this one. I don't get it as much as I got it with Sebastian, pardon me. But there's a bit of an herbalness to it, but really big fan of Vladimir. I'd probably have this up at number 1 or number 2.
It's top 3 for sure.
Yeah, it's a really good fragrance from the house.
Yeah.
Stands out for sure.
Definitely stands out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're done with the 7 lovers. Vladimir was the last in alphabetical order. The next fragrance is called Carine. So named after Carine Roitfeld, created by Dominique Ropion. Patchouli, gardenia, jasmine, pink pepper, vetiver, cashmeran, white amber. So I discovered this fragrance last year at Harrods and instantly loved it. I like the combination of white flowers against the earthiness of the patchouli. And even though this is not a beast mode fragrance, it wears nice, has great longevity, lingering power. It's thanks to the patchouli that makes this fragrance last a long time.
Yeah. It's a really good patchouli fragrance. It's not uber in your face patchouli.
No.
It's not that
But it's
chocolate
there.
cakey, but it's definitely present for sure. I'm curious, do you think they kept the bottle clear to show the green juice for Harrods?
Oh,
You think that might be the case?
I think the other bottles are a little more. Well, I don't think it was a Harrods exclusive.
No.
No.
Okay. That was a shot in the
I don't
dark.
think so. Yeah, I don't think it was a Harrods exclusive, but really this is my favorite of the whole collection.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I've worn so much of it, and I've actually gotten compliments from this as well at the coffee shop.
At the coffee shop, really? I'm also
The baristas were like, "What fragrance are you
What are
wearing?"
you wearing? That's always a good feeling when you get complimented.
They
on
were
what
a
you're
little
wearing.
distant to me for a while until I really started amping up my sprays, and now they're asking me what I'm wearing.
If you're not getting compliments, you're not spraying enough. I think that's like a really good rule of thumb to go by. But yeah, I think Dominic Ropion knocked it out of the park with this one. I mean, as you folks probably know, Sebastian's a huge fan of Dominic Ropion. I'm a big fan of Dominic Ropion, and he has put his mastery to work with this fragrance.
It's really good.
Yeah.
But you gotta love white flowers, gardenia, jasmine. You gotta love those.
Yeah.
Against the patchouli, it's so intoxicating.
And it's not like a super feminine white floral. It's definitely like right in the middle for me. It's really...
It balances it out. Patchouli is more masculine. The white flowers are more feminine.
Back to that yin and yang thing, I guess. So it's just that contrast between the darker and the lighter side of the olfactory system, I guess, is coming to work with this house a lot. And they're executing really well with it.
Yeah, I agree. So we have one fragrance missing called Forgive Me. It's the latest launch from the house. We don't have it here, but it is also created by Dominic Ropion, featuring gardenia, tuberose, patchouli, orange blossom, cashmeran, pink pepper, ylang ylang, tangerine, labdanum, olibanum. For me, this was a bit of a candied smell from what I remember when I sampled it at Harrods last year, but I don't have my nose on it, so I can't definitely let you know exactly what it smells like, but it seems like similar notes to the last fragrance, Carine, but I remember this one being a lot sweeter and a bit more candied. I think it's because of the gardenia, tuberose, orange blossom.
Yeah, given that note breakdown, it definitely looks like it would go in a sweeter direction for sure.
Yeah. So my top three would be Carine, Vladimir, and George.
I would put Vladimir at number 1, then I'd put George at number 2, and then I'd put Carine at number 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna switch those around. We have the same top
But
three.
what about Lawrence? I thought Lawrence was tops for you.
Lawrence is really good. I enjoy that one a lot. But I think Carine stands out for sure. I think it was kind of a thing between Carine and Lawrence for number 3. And Carine's a little bit different. I know that ouds are outplayed, and that's probably the reason I have it at number 4. But you don't really see too many gardenia patchouli combos that are going in like kind of like a masculine direction or like a unisex direction. And for me, that kind of stood out, and I really appreciated that from that fragrance. So,
Cool. So Carine, Vladimir, George.
Yeah.
And you?
It's Vladimir, George, Carine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I really like Vladimir. Vladimir was a really, really amazing fragrance.
Vladimir is good.
It stood out a lot. That iris was top notch from that fragrance, and I'm a sucker for iris. So.
Yeah, me too. Love it. Love iris.
It's got to get number 1.
Yeah. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video on Carine Roitfeld fragrances. Are you familiar with this house? I have it linked in the info box. They are selling at So Avant Garde. Go catch them there. Thanks so much for coming by to do this video.
Oh, thanks for having me.
If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.